Good evening, everyone. My name is Gopal Krishna Anand, Associate Editor of OEM Update Magazine, and I welcome you all to the OEM Magazine's interactive session, Enhancement of Competitiveness for Heavy Engineering Equipment and Machine Tools Industry. I have my colleague Rajeshwari, Editorial OEM Update Magazine, to introduce the panelists and tell you more about this interactive session. I welcome Ms. Rajeshwari to take over and moderate the session.
Thank you, Mr. Gopal. Hello, everyone, and welcome to OEM Update Magazine's interactive session on enhancement of competitiveness for heavy engineering equipment and machine tool industry. Heavy engineering and machine tool sector consists of capital goods industry and are de-licensed and FDI up to 100% under the automatic route, as well as technology collaboration is allowed freely. Import of old and new machinery is permitted freely. Heavy equipment and machinery engage heavy-duty vehicles, most frequently involving earthwork construction. The machine tool industry is considered the mother industry as it supplies machinery for the entire manufacturing industry. The global heavy construction equipment market, valued at USD 90.4 billion by 2025, is expected to grow at a CAGR of 5.4%. The global machine tools market was valued at USD 77.22 billion in 2021 and is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 5.7% until 2030. IIoT increases efficiency and automation in manufacturing. Construction machinery manufacturers have moved towards digitization and data-oriented solutions. Hence, productivity generated by automated technology is expected to fuel demand in the global heavy construction equipment market. On this note, OEM Update will host an interactive session on enhancement of competitiveness for heavy engineering equipment and machine tool industry. During this 90-minute session, leaders from the heavy equipment and machinery will discuss the expanding industrial market, increasing infrastructure and construction opportunities, as well as automation and telematic trends in the heavy equipment and machinery industry. It's an honor and a privilege for me to introduce you to today's distinguished speakers, Mr. John Liu Ignatius, who is the Business Line Manager, General Industry, Robotics and Discrete Automation at ABB India Limited. Mr. Vaibhav Shah, the Managing Director at Automated Precision Inc. for Asia Pacific, India and UAE region. And Mr. C.S. Sharma, the Joint Director and Head PMU-UAS in Quality Council of India.
We just had nice sessions with submissions by our distinguished speakers, sharing their expertise. Of course, Mr. Sharma, you're saying right, quality is the result of intelligent efforts. You talked about technological changes, attaining a speed of product and sustainability of quality interventions and quality challenges. Of course, quality is business mantra, but how do you evaluate role of quality instilling and skilled operators for heavy equipment manufacturing, and what measures may be adopted to increase localized source of talent? Mr. Sharma.
When we talk about this quality, I suppose a very important aspect is related to competence. And when we talk about competence, now we can see that entire globe is moving into the direction from qualification-based system to competence-based system. So what we have to do, that industry has to design what are their requirements. Industry has to define what are their specification or job roles which are needed as per the current context, and our academia should be ready with those solutions in terms of competence, in terms of trainings, in terms of their course curriculum. So if this integration can be done, I suppose our task will be easy. I suppose last week I was attending one workshop at FICCI, and this was point of discussion that industry is not getting the right type of competence. So I suppose the solution would be only that proper training is required in terms of their what are the gaps in industry, and those gaps need to be filled up through proper training. Only qualification will not suffice the purpose. So competence to practice is very important that we have to focus.
Yes, Mr. Sharma. Rightly said, industry has to define designs, and integration of right competence is a necessity. Mr. Vaibhav Shah, you are talking about machines-induced errors, calibrations, and comparison of parts, as well as robot positioning accuracy. So in the present scenario, what opportunities and prospects do you see for calibration in heavy equipment and machinery market?
As far as calibration as a subject is concerned, there's so many ways of of capitalizing the opportunity. One is there are a lot of these startups, the people who are from industry who want to offer these services. So they're buying these equipments from us and then entering into this service business. It's a pretty lucrative business in a way because we all know how many CNC machine industrial area has. So if we look at India and the number of industrial zones that we have, the number of cities, I think there would be billions of CNC machines out there. And there's ample opportunity for any new company to get into this kind of business. At the same time, for all OEMs, it's a pretty good opportunity to have these tools in their primary offering. For companies who have more than 20, 30, 100 machines, they can improvise their quality process by having this calibration as a mandatory thing. And it is a very simple method to follow, but it gives a pretty nice output, and then they can manage those machines pretty well and monitor year after year. So, it's more like a health check, and I think there's a serious potential in this whole market. And with the sizable amount of robots coming in, I think robot calibration is a very niche area. Very few people know about it. So I think it's a golden opportunity if somebody wants to really get into that area.
Quite right, Mr. Vaibhav. Calibration is a health check, and there are good opportunities for OEMs. They are on the way. Mr. John, robotics and IIoT ecosystem in value chain for emerging manufacturing trends. You talked about automated guided vehicles also. Bin picking solutions you mentioned. Of course, flexibility is paramount, as you said during the session. So using robots, how can heavy equipment and machinery tool industry bring competitive improvement for businesses?
We a little bit touched based on it during the presentation. So, as I explained, of course, Sharma sir very aptly put the entire quality framework. He explained it very beautifully. So, what I a little bit see, how do you say a sector is competitive? When the output is at a certain level and it is quite good in terms of quality and at a price that, it's lucrative, right? So, all of this can happen only when there is a multiplier effect. So this multiplier effect is what I a little bit touched base during my presentation, where I believe that you make the products at a cost which is relatively less, because the technological advancements that are happening in robots leads to less power consumption. So that is one thing. And now, the cost of quality, cost of bad quality, which Sharma sir very rightly said, you are reducing that. Yeah. So it has a multiplier effect, right? Both on the top line and the bottom line. And also we should little bit realize that the robotics in the industry in general is at its nascent stage as far as India is concerned. So robotics adoption, which we measure in terms of the robot density, is roughly around 4 to 5 in India, whereas it's more than 150 in China. Yeah. So similar economies, or an economy like India, which is aspiring to be a manufacturing hub in the next decade or so. Machine tool industry is what we call a little bit as indicator industry, right? So this shows how the health of the economy is at the moment. Yeah. So for us to have a very good economy, to provide jobs, manufacturing economy has to be very strong, and machine tools as a sector has a very large role. Yeah. So the latest adoptions, as far as concerned, the technology adoptions as far as robotics is concerned, the vision, making the whole application as easy as possible. Yeah, and with a very right quality mindset, then I think we can bring in the competitiveness that we are all hoping. Yeah, I think we are already in the right direction, and some point we'll get to where we should.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. John. We are moving in the right direction, of course. Multiplier effect leads to quality, top as well as bottom. Rightly said. So, Mr. Sharma, infrastructure market is growing steadily. Quality is, of course, a mantra for products and everything. What prospects do you consider for increasing competitiveness in heavy machinery manufacturing?
So I suppose if we talk about basic requirements which are same across the sectors, those are applicable to heavy machinery sector as well. That, for example, optimum utilization of resources which a manufacturing unit or manufacturing facility has got. So in terms of whether it's a raw material or whether it's a manpower which is being employed by the factory, or whether it's a machine or infrastructure which is being employed in terms of production process. So optimization of all those resources need to be identified in terms of latest technological interventions as far as shop floor is concerned, competence building, regular trainings and skilling of manpower. That is one of the aspects. So if we can effectively utilize these concepts where our man, machine and material are being optimized for efficient and effective use, I suppose we can increase the competitiveness of our existing industry, I would say, framework, where a lot of challenges we have seen in the case of MSMEs, because big companies are still investing on those interventions, but small level companies or MSMEs are not giving ample focus on those aspects. But I suppose right now government is also taking a lot of initiatives, like for example PLI scheme, which is based on certain quality related interventions as well. So if government is giving a lot of focus on those competitiveness building and enhancing, so I suppose our manufacturing sectors, our industry associations should utilize this policy level decisions from the government of India, and they should intervene accordingly. This is the right time that they can implement and they can invest in those latest technology, and they can increase their productivity as well as quality. And once productivity and quality increases, I suppose definitely their competitiveness will increase.
Definitely, Mr. Shah. Optimum utilization of resources is necessary in the present times. Mr. Vaibhav, there is Make in India and other campaigns are in the offing. How far transition to electrical heavy equipment manufacturing is supported by localized sourcing of components?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think Make in India is a pretty successful campaign throughout, ever since the start. It took a little slow and steady start, but I think today MSMEs are doing fairly well. They are in the right areas. They are now understanding and utilizing more market research before jumping into any particular industry. So as far as the heavy engineering is concerned, that's somewhere where India is a bit blessed as far as raw material is concerned. We have a lot of steel and major raw materials available at a pretty affordable rates. We do not import too many of these goods, and the processing cost, because of manpower cost being so low, is very efficient here in India. So I think what I feel is that today this whole Make in India is a real success because of these MSME now entering into the processing of heavy engineering goods, supplying it to bigger international players or the foreign companies who have Indian subsidiaries or Indian operation. And then also the globalization approach that the current government applied over last 7-10 years has also invited a lot of these large manufacturing companies in India, who are into this heavy sector. So these MSMEs are now manufacturing the outsourced components. They're taking up a share of the OEMs and then supplying this. So like you see in automotive, it's a complete tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supplier game now. The same company is supplying the door and panels and body bumpers to Suzuki. The same guy is supplying to Tata Motors, Mahindra, to Nissan. So it's very flat for those companies to actually grow and develop a certain product line and then continue to grow in that area. They're not restricted like past, where they only could supply a certain amount of items, or they were restricted in terms of their business capacities. I see serious potential there. I think Make in India can be further improvised if government further supports these MSMEs in case where their visions or their ideas somehow fail and they're bailed out. So that's one thing which is only missing out currently, but I think the rest everything seems pretty good.
Very right. Make in India campaign is going to be successful in future. Mr. John, Mr. Vaibhav was telling processing cost is efficient in country. So what you have to say about the localized sourcing of components?
The localization initiative is very important, or I think that is one of the backbones of Atmanirbhar, right? But which initiative I also believe would really rampen up the localization initiatives is the production linked incentive scheme that has recently come. Yeah. So the production linked incentive scheme gives you 25 billion, of outlay, of incentives that has been earmarked across different industries. So today, automotive industry, I could very clearly see biggest beneficiary of this PLI scheme. We already, we all know that already we have quite a bit of an export market in the automotive space, right? So when our localization efforts will come, when the production also shifts towards India. So we have the capability already. Yeah? And the other sector that I see will get even more localization is the electronics, right? The manufacturing of smartphones, the manufacturing of consumer goods, a sector where we traditionally have been the largest importer, consumer electronics. So there a lot of localization will come into play. So now that the government has set the right platform for our companies to even go further, that is where I think now we have to start a little thinking differently. For us to become a reliable manufacturing destination for some of the global OEMs who will set shops, going forward, we have to position ourselves as a destination which has more focus on quality, has reliable supply chain, supply network. And we also shouldn't feel, or restrict ourselves by not adopting the newest technologies that are available. We have to start embracing the change, which I believe is happening already in the technological space, right? So robots are there, industrial IoT has started to make inroads. Many other technologies which are needed in terms of making an effective manufacturing operation have started to make inroads. So that is where I think our organizations, our manufacturing institutions have to start adopting it. And it's also important that we cannot neglect the small and medium enterprises in this value chain, because they don't necessarily come into spotlight because they are not the ones who are making large investments. But they always form a backbone of the entire supply network. Yeah, talk about automotive, talk about machine tools, talk about plastics industry, for example. You have a large tier 1 and tier 2 organizations. Yeah, how can we make the policy or the financing schemes available for those companies so that they can also a little bit catch on the wave of localization and get benefit. Yeah, so that would create a very harmonious and a very economically sustainable society in the future.
Correct, Mr. John. Embracing change is very necessary. So lastly, one more question I want to ask is, has IIoT been an accelerator for enhancing productivity for Make in India machine?
Yeah, Gopal, I wouldn't really try to Make in India. See, Make in India is a campaign where we are trying to bring in business. That's one thing, But IIoT or digital technologies, they are there to increase the production, the productivity of what we are already doing. Yeah. So for me, the industrial IoT that we are talking about is to support our customers, our manufacturing partners to make the right decision. Yeah. So we a little bit spoke about how the manufacturing landscape is changing, where a lot of flexibility is needed in the system. Yeah. So we have come to a stage where we are facing a little bit of global supply chain shortages, which means I cannot plan my production in a very short period of time. Yeah, it has to be well planned. So the inputs, the information related to my supply chain, so that the scheduling of when my output has to go from the factory, all has to be integrated. Yeah, there are different levels of integration that has to happen. So that is where I think the industrial IoT that we are talking about enables a system where the right decisions can be made at right times. Yeah. So there are many benefits that we can talk about industrial IoT or even IoT for that matter. But for me, the biggest benefit that one can get is by making the right decisions at the right time. So make in India or not make in India, I think that has to be even taken more seriously when it comes to our manufacturing operations. Yeah.
Yeah, so rightly said, Mr. John. We are reaching to the end of the session. May I request Mr. Vaibhav Shah to give a closing remark for the session?
Thank you so much, sir. So I think it was a very, very neat and very nice session, very informative. We, thank you, Mr. Gopal Krishna and the OEM Update team to bring these three aspects together. And thanks to every panelist here. It was very informative to see how robots are coming in and how that whole industrial shift is happening, or even to understand very fundamentals of quality and what are the simplest of things, which Mr. Sharma said are needed. The most interesting line was that it's not very expensive to invest into quality. It's just 8 or 10% of your actual revenue. So I think it's a great session, and I'm sure that everyone who joined can have any more queries or anything can reach out to us, reach out to OEM Update, and for any of your questions, queries, requirements, or thoughts, you can share and comment to us. So thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vaibhav. I request Ms. Rajeshri to close the session, please.
Thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's enhancement of competitiveness for heavy engineering equipment and machine tools industry. We hope you enjoyed the session thoroughly. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. John Leo Ignatius, Mr. Vaibhav Shah, and Mr. C.S. Sharma. I would also like to thank Mr. Gopal Anand and Mr. Prasad Naya for taking up this initiative. We request our delegates and viewers to stay connected with us on our social media handles. OEM Update magazine is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also download our app from Google Play and App Store. So with this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. Request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.